Coming up on Stow Nation. So, as you know, Storyteller came out with the Invader for the 2022.
Yes.
So, what are your thoughts on that, and how does that compare to your Sherpa? And what do you plan on being able to provide for the new LT? When will it be available? Do you mind answering some listener questions?
No, let's do it.
What are the specifications on the bolt used to attach the owl racks? Is there any way to fix digital miles to empty on the long-range 47-gallon fuel tank? How did you come up with the name Owl Van? Welcome to another episode of Stow Nation, a production of Park Media. Before I introduce today's guest, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, share, and leave a 5-star review. And if you find this podcast useful in any way and want to pay us the ultimate compliment, head on over to our Patreon page where you can subscribe to be a Classic, Stealth, or Beast Mode subscriber. Stow Nation, welcome back to part 2 of the interview with John Willenborg, the owner and founder of Owl Vans. In part 2, John answers the big question, what does he think about Storyteller's new Invader system and how it compares to his Sherpa? John also answers a bunch of excellent questions from the community, and on a more personal note, he discusses how he's trying to balance work, life, and family. The last note is that if you didn't listen to part 1, obviously you should stop right now and you should go back and listen to part 1 and then come back to part 2. And don't forget, because our conversation was so in-depth and covered a lot of information, the camera's battery actually ran out, so the last 1/3 of this episode, there will be no video, but don't worry, the audio is still there. So with that, please sit back, relax, and enjoy part 2. No, I get it. So to switch gears a little bit, so as you know, Storyteller came out with the Invader for the 2022.
Yes.
So what are your thoughts on that, and how does that compare to your Sherpa?
Oh, we're touching the third rail here. Yeah, it's tough. It's one of those tough situations where as the van industry progresses, there are going to be more and more, there's going to be more and more competition in the different parts. I've already spoken with the folks at Storyteller about our feelings with the Invader, and I don't need to rehash a ton of that. I think anyone can understand by looking at what we do and what they do and what the Invader is, and understand why we wouldn't be thrilled about it. It's always tough to have something that you worked really hard on creating and then people make iterations of it. On the flip side, I can kind of understand how folks are trying to go beyond what they do today. So, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't want to create some sort of big drama in the industry, but I've talked to Storyteller and we've worked it out, and I think I'm comfortable with the go forward. I obviously will always think that we make the best gear, because if I think that we don't make the best gear, then we need to work harder and we need to fix it. There are a lot of folks that, Storyteller aside, now that are copying our stuff. I understand it. I will say this, trust the people that went down the journey. That is evident when you are talking to Rob and Mark from Van Compass. These are guys that came in when vans didn't have suspension. And they had a T1N, which for folks that haven't been in vans for a while is the OG Sprinter. You don't see them much. They kind of look like Dustbuster. The OG Sprinters, they developed their suspension for that. They are suspension engineers that came from companies that made high-end Jeep suspensions. This is they eat, sleep, drink, breathe suspension technology. And what you learn from going from zero to creating a product that works, all the paths you go down that are dead ends, all the problems you have that you fix, those are important learnings. And those allow you to make a better product. And so then what comes in is someone looks at what Van Compass has created, or they look at something we've created and they go, oh, I could make that too. And they copy it, but they haven't been down the road. And I see it every day. I'll see someone else on Instagram with a copycat of one of our products, and I'm like, ooh, they did that thing we did 2 years ago that's going to cause that door to crack. Or, oh, look, they didn't box in this hinge. And so that's going to be a weak point on that carrier long term. That's going to start, denting the outside of the door because it doesn't have structure here. And there's all these things, and people get caught up, and people come out with things that sound flashy from a headline standpoint. Oh, it's a no drill carrier for VS30. Well, I'm not a moron. I had these carriers out for years before anyone else had them. I don't want to drill holes in my van either. So we have, if it's out there as a no drill system, it means we tested it and it failed our engineering tests. So people that come out with these no drill systems, it's a false claim when it's no drill, because a lot of times it's no drill, but you're cutting weather stripping and grinding latches and cutting this on the door. And it's like, well, it's no drill, but it's twice the amount of labor, and you're grinding stuff instead of drilling it. So is grinding on a door any better than drilling? And hopefully this doesn't come across as bitter. It's more like frustration that I don't have the ability to communicate to every customer. And I really do feel like if people are given the same information, they make good decisions. And the problem is, obviously the company that makes these other things is going to tell them it's the best, the greatest, the grandest. And they're not going to talk about how the fact that they have a massive amount of customers with dented doors that are coming back to them. So I would say this, I'm never going to tell customers we're the only thing out there. And there are companies that make decent stuff. I'll say decent. But we've been down that journey, and we've probably tested it because we work really, really hard to make the most robust stuff. And so we've arrived at a solution that, for the most part, I think based on the feedback from folks around the industry, has been pretty solid year. And so I caution people about trying to be penny wise, pound foolish, and buying an off-brand something thinking they're saving a couple $100, because is that company going to be there? And I'm not afraid to admit on this podcast that we've had stuff go wrong. I've had products that were out of spec when we shipped it, and I've replaced people's doors. $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 of repairs. It is, out of the years that we've been in business and the thousands of racks that we've sold, I can count on less than one hand of the, what I'll call, major issues we've had, which I'm incredibly proud of our team for. But we've had them, but we fixed them, and we did whatever it took. Perfect case in point right now, and I can go show it to you. And this is one of those situations, a business owner, that's so frustrating. Guy in Las Vegas installs a B2. Really nice guy. And this is where people out there, niceness will get you so much further than being a jerk.
Right.
Because, we work hard at this, and we don't want you to have a bad experience. Calling up and telling us that, hey, here's this problem, let's work together to solve it. We will work so hard to solve it. But if you call up and your first sentence is, I'm going to sue you, then you're going to talk to a lawyer. You're not going to get your situation resolved. And that doesn't help anyone, right? Because we're a good company, and we want to make things right. It matters to us. Okay, so what happened with this guy? Really nice guy in Las Vegas, gets a B2. Calls up customer support. He goes, this is super weird. My buddy's got a B2. He's had it on for like a year. It's rock solid. I install my B2. I shut my door. It looks like Jello. We're like, huh? And he's like, the whole door is wobbling and shaking. It's in fact, it's starting to dent the door. And we said, we sell these things all the time. They don't dent the door. What? And so we go, send us the video. I'll show you the video after. It is like throwing a stone in a pond. He shuts the door, and the whole door wobbles and whips.
Oh, wow.
And we're like, what the heck? And I'm like, am I losing my mind? So I go out to all the vans we have here, and I'm slamming these doors. They've got 200 pounds on the B2, and I'm slamming it like you shouldn't slam a door, and rock solid. I'm like, look, I have no idea what's going on, but that's not acceptable. So we drove a truck with a flatbed trailer, so we didn't put miles on the guy's van, drove it from Anaheim to Vegas, picked the guy's van up on a flatbed, drove it back to Anaheim, had a body shop take the door off because we wanted to do testing on it. We took we got a brand new factory door, painted it, reinstalled it on his van, took that door off, shipped that door up here. In the interim, we gave him brand new product, but told him not to install it until we could figure out what was going on. We brought his van back, so we replaced, and for the hassle, we gave him a free bumper.
Oh,
so
wow.
we gave him we trucked his vehicle out. We installed the free bumper. We replaced his door until we could figure out what happened. And it turns out I got the door here a few days ago. The way a door is constructed for Mercedes is you have the outer sheet metal, which is cosmetic for the most part, and then you have an inner structure. Those are bonded together with body bonding adhesive. And although not strong in individual spots, it's kind of like a unibody. A unibody is not terribly strong in any individual spot, but as a whole, it's very strong. Same thing with the door. The inner structure is bonded to the outer structure of the door. And because of all the little bonds, it becomes strong. This door was never bonded.
Oh my goodness.
From the factory.
Wow.
It's crazy. You've got the outer sheet metal, and then you've got all the what I'll call caterpillars of adhesive are all on the door in the right place, but the inner structure never got pressed against the outer structure.
Wow.
So the inner structure was completely separate from the outer structure, and so the guy had no structure to his door. So the end of the day is this, and I tell this story, and this is a real story, and if this customer wants to come forward, he can vouch for it, but here's a situation where we did nothing wrong. We had a product that was perfectly good. The door was a mistake Mercedes made in a completely poorly manufactured door. And I'm not throwing Mercedes under the bus. They make millions of these things. Something's going to happen. So all into it, I probably spent $10,000 making that situation right for that customer. And at the end of the day, it's an OEM Mercedes problem that has nothing to do with anything we did. I tell that story so that people understand that when you buy our gear, we stand behind it. And I'm not afraid to tell people that we have a bad experience sometimes. But when you go and work with some of these copycat products from some guy out of his garage in Chicago or something, or, Poland, which I think there's somebody copying our stuff out there. It's probably not going to be engineered that well. B, when something goes wrong, is there a company that's going to stand behind that gear? When they need to. So anyway, that's who we are. And it doesn't mean that every single customer that interacts with us has a stellar experience. We try, but it's not a guarantee. But I think that the lion's share do. There's always the few folks that, whether it's bad luck or whatever, or that you can't please. But for the most part, we work really, really hard. And the customer service people genuinely care. So again, when people call up, let the customer service people get up to speed. They absolutely care. They're going to make things right if they can. And that's true not just for us, but all industries right now. I'm noticing, and maybe you're noticing it too, I feel genuinely bad. The other day I was at a restaurant, and it took forever to have the server come over. And I'm looking around, and it's because the restaurant needed like 4 more servers, and they clearly couldn't hire them because of the labor shortage. And then you've got somebody that's working that is doing 4 or 5 times the amount of work, and they're understaffed and they're stressed. And so the last thing, when they came over, they were super apologetic. And I said, I get it. You guys look like you're down on staff. And she's like, oh my God, you have no idea. And I said, whatever you can do is fine. If it takes longer, it's fine. And she's like, oh my God, thank you. It's been so bad. Like, thank you. And she was just genuinely so thankful that someone understood that with the labor shortage and the way stuff is right now, that like, just cut people the benefit of the doubt, because like so many people are working so much harder because of the labor shortage that these are human beings. And when you're angry, I get it, but they internalize it. I internalize it. When people have a bad experience, I take it home at night. And that's why I don't want it to ever happen again. But these are people, and they take it home at night. So bear with us during this labor shortage, and bear with everyone, whether it's a restaurant or another company you're ordering from.
Oh, yeah. Like,
nobody is loving this environment right now.
Yeah. Everyone's, I think, chief complaint is the wait time. But, I mean, nobody can help that. So it's one of those things that I think hopefully this year we'll get a little used to it. So, I mean, if you started back in 2020, 2021 or whatnot, like early 21s, it's like, oh, I have to wait a month? That's ridiculous. And now it's like, what? You want me to wait over a year? So
I just talked to Jeffrey right before this phone call of Storyteller, and he was saying that they're out 24-ish months on new vans, which is crazy. And he doesn't want that, but there's not much he can do about it. It's a vendor thing. Thankfully Storyteller does a really good job of getting the chassis in, which is the main gating item for most manufacturers. But it's just a bandwidth thing from all of the vendors. I don't even try to guess how many companies are involved in supplying parts for a Storyteller when it's built. The problem you've got is if just one of those is delayed, the entire van's delayed.
Oh, yeah.
No one's going to deliver a van and be like, oh, you know what? Everything on it's done except, hey, the wheels are on a boat outside of Long Beach, so you've got your factory steel Mercedes wheels. So everything looks great except you have crap wheels on it. that doesn't work.
Don't worry, it's still under warranty.
Yeah. So, I mean, Mercedes is shipping vans with no options now.
Yeah.
You have people who ordered vans, waited a year, and they're like, oh, yeah, your adaptive cruise control, we had no chips, so that's gone. Oh, by the way, you know, the full entertainment system that you ordered, we didn't have any chips, so that's gone.
Gosh.
And so you get these base level vans, and you've got no recourse. Obviously, you don't have to buy it, but Mercedes is just like, hey, we don't have chips. There's a chip shortage, and we can't not produce vehicles. So you're getting your van, but it's going to have almost no technology on it, which arguably I'd kind of like.
I know, right? Going back to the old school. So to switch gears again, all pun intended. So
Nice. I like it.
the LT's out. Ford, is starting to come in for, their all-wheel transit or maybe even like non-Storytellers, the two-wheel transit stuff. So what do you offer and when will it be available? Because I know we kind of talked about this over the summer, but things have changed, obviously. So has there been any updates and what do you plan on being able to provide for the new LT?
Yeah, this is becoming kind of the bane of my existence because when I started Owl about 3 years ago, the tire carrier initially did quite well. And within probably the first couple of weeks of starting this place, when it was just me, there were people reaching out for transit gear. Mm-hmm. And I said, it's not massively different from a Sprinter. It's different, but the same techniques that I used to develop my Sprinter gear can be used on a transit. Complexity of a transit is just not built as strongly as a Sprinter. So it's definitely thinner materials, can't support the same weight on the hinges as a Sprinter. We can work around it, but it's not as turnkey. But what happened is, I guess, problems of success. The Sprinter stuff got so popular that I'm like, well, I can spend my time making the products that I have orders for, or I can R&D a transit product that I don't even have orders for yet. So I stuck to the Sprinter stuff, and it kept snowballing, and the company kept growing, and we couldn't keep up. And it's been one of those things where, and I feel really bad because it wasn't being purposely disingenuous. It was being naive. I told people many times with transit, oh yeah, we have that on the schedule to start R&Ding that next month or 60 days or before the end of the year, we're going to have that out. And I was being honest when I said it. But the fact of the matter is we're going on 3 years, and we had a couple of transit tire carriers out there for a minute, but we had to pause them because we were so busy with Sprinter. And we have transit stuff done. So we actually had the transit, all the gear done 6-7 months ago. There was not enough aluminum to make it. We could not literally physically get aluminum tube to make the products. It wasn't available. We were at a point where the alloys that we use, they have to be bendable aluminum because we mandrel bend our stuff. Again, going back to competitive products, there's a lot of products out there where I can instantly look at it and see where they're saving money, but to the detriment of the customer because it's not as strong.
Yeah. When
you bend a piece of tube, it's infinitely stronger when it goes around a corner than if you take two pieces of tube, cut them, and weld them together.
Oh, yeah.
The reason that you would do that is because bending stuff it's much harder to do, especially if you're bending in multiple planes and axes. Also, the material you need is more expensive. So we use an alloy that's bendable. There's a 6061 alloy that you can cut and weld and works perfectly well. It's not bendable. So that's readily available. The stuff that we need to make our stuff was back ordered worldwide. Mm-hmm. And I told my head of manufacturing that, borrow, call in favors, do whatever you can, buy every piece of material you can. And we did that, and that kept us running. But it didn't allow us, bare minimum running. We were in stock on all of our products, and then the material shortage happened, and we slipped to like 4 to 6 weeks. I think we may even be 6 to 8 now. Simply because there are days where my entire production team sat there and played cards because we have no tube. And that's incredibly expensive with the number of people we have. And so coming back to the transit thing, it's so frustrating for me. It's really frustrating to see other companies come into the transit space and do what we do and not have a solution for the transit customer. I will say again, with all honesty, we will. and the supply chain on material is getting better. So I'm really, really hoping that very soon, and it's in my board meeting deck for 2022, is the release of the Transit. So it's in there. Now, if there's a new pandemic, I think today's version was Deltacron or something.
Are you serious? I've heard of the Flurona.
Yeah. So there's flu. I mean, the fear mongering is off the charts. You got Flurona, Deltacron, Optimus Prime. I mean, it's like nonstop. But assuming that we can start to kind of claw our way out of all of this, then hopefully we can have enough material to make the Transit stuff. But it's done.
So let's just pretend that we're living in a perfect world, no pandemic, blah, blah, blah. So what products for the Ford LT will you have, or would you have?
So we have a side ladder, and that's the other thing I didn't mention on the Ultimate Beast because it's not on it right now. But we have a side ladder coming out for the Transit as well as the Sprinter. That's actually something we worked on with Storyteller, and we wanted to have it ready for the Transit. But again, tubing availability, we had to say, Uncle, we couldn't deliver it. So side ladder, really cool side ladder. I've never been a huge fan of side ladders. Reason I'm not a huge fan of side ladders is that the rear works better for a ladder. Not just because that's what we make. We make a rear ladder because I didn't like side ladders. When you go off-road and trails and you talk about fire roads, not a big deal. You get into Northern California where you get a lot of trails where there's a lot of trees and a lot of rocks. The number of vans I see where the side ladder sticks out so much down at the bottom of the vehicle, where trails where you can get by with your wheels, it catches, and when it catches, it rips and it tears at the rocker panel of the car of the van. It messes up the roof rails for the roof rack, and the ladder itself is, I don't know, $800 to $1,000, but you do $5,000 of damage to your van.
Mm-hmm.
It collects snow. It whistles in the wind. The powder coat wears off because gravel and sand hit it. So there's all these things that I didn't love about side ladders. And so we said, if we're going to do a side ladder, it's going to be multifunctional. It's not going to be a one-trick pony. We're going to have mountability. So we incorporated, it's basically like a Sherpa side ladder hybrid.
Nice. So
all of the rungs are mountable. So whether it's strapping stuff, mounting brackets for surfboards and paddleboards, roto packs, there's more than one feature. And that's something we try to bring to every product that we bring out for these vehicles. They're so small and the gear's expensive. It's got to do more than one thing. Second of all, we made sure that the ladder was super high and tight to the van, meaning that down low where it could catch on things, it's really close to the vehicle. At least the tubes are that would catch. Mm-hmm. And then we tuck it in right behind our side steps that are going to deflect anything that would come in contact with it. So it's 4 to 5 inches tighter to the vehicle than a lot of the ladders that are out there. And then it comes off the vehicle a little bit as it goes up. So it's still very climbable, but it's much more usable or much better off-road than the current side ladder. So side ladder getting back to your original question, side ladder for the Transit will be coming out. We have our solo bumper that we make for the Sprinter. We also have put on a Transit, and it looks fantastic. So we're going to be releasing that for the Transit as well. And then, of course, we're going to have our kind of iconic ladder tire that we're known for is going to be available for the Transit, as well as the Sherpa. Lots of people asked for the B2. I'm unwilling to commit to the B2, not because I don't want to have it for a Transit. I'm unsure of the load that door can carry. We've already seen other companies. We've looked at the engineering of the hinges and the hinge box where it mounts to the van. We are maximum comfortable with 100 pounds of payload in addition to whatever carrier is on there. Mm-hmm. We're already seeing other companies that make Transit stuff that are saying, oh yeah, 250 pound payload limit. And I'm sitting there going, you don't have an engineer on your staff at all, because there's no way that your engineer said that the same structure that our engineer says we're going to be comfortable up to 100 pounds, that your engineer is looking at it and says, oh yeah, no problem, 250 pounds, which is markedly different, that they're 2.5 times the load that the same vehicle that our engineer looks at can carry.
Yeah.
And so we're going to be conservative. The B2 is a product that can carry a lot of bikes, boxes, and lots of gear. Mm-hmm. People can very quickly load that up with 200 pounds of payload. And I'm just not comfortable until we can get more testing saying that that'll happen. But the Sherpa with a 100-pound load limit, is definitely something that we'll be able to do.
Okay, cool. Anything else?
We have wheels coming out. Wheels are hard to get. We've been really unimpressed with the supply chain of wheels. So we're doing our own wheels with really cool offsets. So case in point, Transit. I like the Transit. I think it's going to be a cool product, a cool van for folks. It's really come a long way. The hubs and the wheels on that thing, I don't know if they just it's like they went to like the backyard rednecks part bin. That thing has an axle that is a full foot too wide for that vehicle.
Oh.
So if you talk about wheel offsets, and I just did a video called the what is it called? Wheel Tire Guide for Sprinters or something like that. Mm-hmm. So if you want to understand wheels and wheel offsets and that kind of thing, and even get a sneak peek at what our wheel is going to look like, you can watch that video on YouTube. But an offset is basically where the tire sits in relation to the hub. So a zero offset is the mounting surface, the inside mounting surface of the tire being dead center in the width of the rim. Mm-hmm. Some off-road tires, they use back spacing as opposed to offset. It's going to get you the same thing, essentially. The numbers will be different. That's measuring from that wheel mounting surface to the inside of the rim. What is that in inches? Offset is 0 is dead center, negative and positive out from dead center. So you're just measuring from a different point. But long story short, if you've ever seen a 3500 Sprinter, or a dually for that matter, what a lot of people may or may not know that don't own them is that even though you have 4 wheels on the rear and 2 up front, it is the same wheel. So the way it works is the wheel on the front of the vehicle mounts with the tire going kind of more towards the vehicle. Mm-hmm. And then on the rear axle, you have one wheel that mounts the same way the front wheel does, and then the other wheel flips. And so you have the wheels for a dually, the hub is outside from underneath the tire, and it's really hard to describe in words. Normally the wheel mounting surface is inside of the width of the rim. In a dually, it's outside of it. That way they can be put face to face. The Transit used a dually wheel on a single rear wheel drive vehicle.
Oh.
And the reason that's weird is why? I think the answer is that Ford had a part. I was only half joking when I said they went to the parts bin and grabbed it, or the backyard pick and pull. Clearly, they had an axle, and they put it on the van. I'm guessing it's from a full-size truck or something, because it is way too wide for that van, and they just ran with it. So what they did to fix it is they actually made the offset of the wheel insane so that the tire's under the vehicle. But if you look down the side of a Transit, the thing that sticks out the most on the vehicle are the studs for the wheels. Mm-hmm. They stick out past everything else. Yeah. So the hub is really far out. And so what you end up with, it's really hard to make a wheel with that kind of offset look good. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't look like a wheel should. So we worked really hard to create an offset for that vehicle that would make the wheel look more like a wheel you could get for a Sprinter. I'm really happy with how they turned out. So we should have an offering for a Transit wheel. There are not many all-wheel drive Transit wheels in the market right now. Mm-hmm. So we're going to have that wheel out in black, bronze, and gunmetal. Same thing for the Sprinter. We've got a wheel coming out, black, bronze, and gunmetal. And the cool thing that we did with our wheel is we put dual valve stems on it. And so one valve stem you can set to deflate the tire at a certain rating. Nice. And one you can use to just, as you'd use a normal valve stem. And so you can literally walk back to your tire and flip one of you don't have to have the deflators come on and off. You can just deflate with the dual valve stems. Yeah. And then we've also gone for a load rating that is, I think, almost double that of Black Rhino and Method. Wow. So it's a much stronger wheel for off-roading. And we're also going to be TUV and DOT approved. So TUV, for folks that don't know, is essentially the governing body of aftermarket, it may be OEM too, but certainly aftermarket automotive parts in Germany. And as I've said many times, Germans are very precise, generalizing here, in case there are any vague Germans listening. But the TUV standard is much higher than a lot of the standards here in the U.S., and so the wheel will meet all of those standards, so it can be sold internationally, but also just peace of mind for people buying that wheel that it's a really nice, high-quality product. For the Mercedes, will it still have the accurate reading when you go into the menu system? Yeah, so the TPMS will transfer over. So the TPMS, tire pressure management system, those transfer over with the valve stem. Okay. So
Cool.
yeah, and then also just a thing of note for folks. A lot of those come with metal valve stems. For off-roading, typically you want to go with a plastic or a rubber valve stem. Rubber is usually the best because the metal valve stems have a tendency to shear. And so a lot of people think when they're getting their tires redone, oh, metal valve stems are more expensive. Those must be better. Then you're better off with the rubber ones.
Okay, cool. What's the ETA on those bad boys?
I will actually have a full set. I'll have a full set of first out of the mold wheels here before the end of the month. So that's a few weeks. We're in kind of early-ish January when we're recording this. So I will have a full set for our van to test, as well as single one-offs of the different colors. So I'm getting a set of bronze for our vehicle, just to try something different. And then I'll have a black and a gunmetal in-house just so we can color check and see how we like the color. But those wheels then, once we approve them, assuming there's nothing, no wholesale changes we want to make, we're probably a production time of 30 to 45 days, and then you're, got shipping time. So you're looking at probably still about 3.5 months out before anyone would have them in their hand.
So like Q2 then?
Yeah.
Okay, that's not bad.
Yeah, I mean, look, these days for just getting arsenals, it might be Q2.
I know, right? So do you mind answering some listener questions?
No, let's do it.
All right, cool. So I'm going to say their first name, but leave their last name out for
There you go.
privacy purposes. All right. So Joseph, he asks, when will the new wheels for Sprinter be available in cost?
I nailed it. I just
I know, right? So we didn't talk about the cost, though.
Cost is not final, but it's going to be in the higher end of what the current offerings are. So, well, that said, Black Rhino just came out with a beadlock that is much more expensive. But in the non-beadlock wheels, this is a non-beadlock wheel, it's going to be in the threes.
Okay, 300.
Yeah, $300.
Okay. Just make sure it's not
3,000. This
okay.
is not some like chrome 30-inch spinner.
Okay, just making sure.
Exhibit's not selling these.
All right, Jeffrey. Okay, so I will say his last name, Jeffrey Hunter.
I know him. I'm familiar.
He asks, does kryptonite really lessen your superpowers if you get too close to it, or is that just a myth?
I read that and I was joking. I said, I think my only superpower is being able to hold down the water in Mexico.
Well, that is a superpower because after Baja, we all got sick. So, anyways, Gordy asks, what are the specifications on the bolt used to attach the owl racks? So he kind of wants to know like the length. He says the heads are a hex nut carriage type bolt. So he's trying to figure out like what it is. Like what's it made out of, the thread dimension, all that.
Okay, so this is going to be riveting listening to everyone out there. But the bolts we use, we use different bolts depending on where it is, but the majority of our bolts are a 3/8 by 16 threading. They're a stainless steel with a black. We moved from black zinc to... No, we were... I take that back. Correction. They have a black zinc coating. We moved from black oxide. So it's a stainless steel bolt. So stainless steel is a little bit softer, but we really didn't want this to rust. So that's a situation where maintenance is an important thing on your rack. You're going to want to tighten or check the spec on the bolts that attach your carrier to your vehicle. The reason being, we engineer in some preload into the carriers. What I mean by that is we actually purposely make the hinge side hold the carrier off the door. And the act of screwing or bolting in the third mounting point pulls the carrier into the door. So essentially our entire carrier is a spring that's being tightened. And the reason we do that is because you've taken the slop out of that. So when you slam the door, if it's already wanting to pull off the door, it's going to impart less force onto that third mounting point. Mm-hmm. It's one of the ways that we get around a lot of carriers on the market require big internal door bracing. We don't. And that's because of the way we engineer that product. But that only works if those bolts on the hinge are tight, because if they get loose, now the carrier can put more force into the door. So the reason I bring all this up when we're talking about bolts is stainless steel is a softer material than like a grade 8 or a grade 10. Now the weights, the number of bolts we have in the weight, we're fine. So this is not something where we're worried about it falling off. But the torque and the torque rating that you can tighten the nuts down to is only about 30 foot-pounds don't quote me on that. I have to look what our actual spec is. It might be like 28, but you can't crank these things down to 90 foot-pounds, 100 foot-pounds like a lug bolt or a lug nut. And so you have to check them periodically to make sure that they're tight, because that's how the vehicle functions, or the carriage function properly. And you can always throw some, they have nylocks on, but you can always, when you're checking them, back them off a little bit, put some red Loctite on there, tighten them back down. It's just going to help.
Okay, cool. Let me get to the next question here. Joseph asks, is there any way to fix digital miles to empty on the long-range 47-gallon fuel tank?
As of now, I am unaware of a fix for that. So what this person is asking, for folks that don't know, there's this really cool new fuel tank that's out there. Anyone that has a Sprinter knows how quickly those fuel tanks run down.
Is that made by you, or is that someone else?
No, it's made by S&B filters, I believe.
Okay.
And it's a 47-gallon replacement tank. It fits the Storyteller. There are folks out there saying it doesn't. It does. I have one outside. In fact, you can come look at it on the Ultimate Beast. So,
well, I think we should just test it out on my vehicle.
Perfect. Let's do it. So anyone that says it doesn't fit, you can take a picture and prove that it does. But the way the fuel system works on the Mercedes, and this is where the engineers get in this kind of circular loop of information. So there is a mechanical fuel float, and what a mechanical fuel float means is it's just that it's a mechanical float in your tank. Cars for the history of time have had mechanical floats. It's a thing that as you fill gas in your gas tank, will float to the top. It's attached to a lever. That lever is taking a reading. Same is probably true of how they read the, well, I won't go there for the gray and those tanks. They might use something digital. But they have a mechanical float, and they also have a digital calculation. So this is where I get really frustrated with engineers, because they're like, oh, someone in a room somewhere goes, hey, instead of reading the tank mechanically, we can just look at how much fuel, we know the size of the fuel tank, and we can look at how much fuel is flowing through the fuel injectors, and we can calculate how much fuel you have in your tank, which to me is stupid, because you already have something that works really well that is not prone to error. Because if fuel, for any reason, a diesel heater, for example, that keeps your van warm, if fuel for any reason is removed from the tank, the mechanical float is going to fall. It's always going to be accurate, assuming it's working. If you're calculating the fuel traveling through the fuel injector, then if your diesel heater uses a gallon of diesel to keep your van warm, your computer is going to say you have a gallon of fuel that you don't have in your tank. And so there is, I want to say it's like a J31 or a J51 update. So what happened is Mercedes used to calculate the fuel in your tank based on consumption. They now had an update that goes back to the manual float. So if you get one of these tanks, you may want to confirm with your dealer that you have the latest updated software. You won't need to do anything, just have them you should have updated software anyway.
Right.
Old vans used to do it completely off consumption. So again, getting back to the question this customer is asking, and I'm sorry, I maybe I over-explained things, but the fuel, or the mileage to empty is still done via consumption. It is still assuming you have a 24-gallon tank, or whatever, the 27, I think it's 24-gallon factory tank. That, as of now, is not changeable. I'll talk to Rentec, but really the mechanical float will tell you how much fuel you have. So that's really, you just got to go a little bit old school and just make sure you look at your fuel gauge.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough. All right. Esther asks, how did you come up with the name Owl Van?
This one got me in hot water with my daughter.
Uh-oh.
People can't see this, but these are my kids here behind me. So that is the owl of Owl Van, that guy right there. That's my other daughter, Elin. Not other daughter, only daughter, Elin. And so what happened when I started Owl is I was doing research before I even did my first product. I was looking at what's out there, and I kept looking at these different companies, and I was like, man, no one offers what I want to build. There's a market here. But in doing all that, they all had such similar names that I couldn't remember which was which. I was like, wait, where did I see that? Was it on Trail Adventure Van or Adventure Trail Van or Trail Works or Adrenaline Van Works? And it's just like, it made my brain hurt. And I said, if I do this, I've got to have a name that's easy to remember, easy to spell, because we're in the digital age where people are going to type it into a web URL. So I don't want any crazy spellings like spelling owl with an X in it or something like that. So everyone has an X. When in doubt, put an X in it. And then I wanted something that had a strong icon, because I think this was one of Steve Jobs' things. He said, when you're naming a company or a brand, have it have a recognizable icon that people can relate to. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted that because it helps people remember the brand. And what good is your brand if people can't remember who you are? Mm-hmm. I think owls are cool. My son, so getting back to how I came up with owl, my son, unlike a normal human being, anyone that's had a kid, when they wake up from a nap because they can't talk yet when they're babies, they cry. Mm-hmm. They cry because they're either hungry or they want to be picked up. It's just the universal communication when a baby is crying. So Ike, my son, Owl, we had a baby monitor like many parents, and he was our second child, so it wasn't our first rodeo. And one morning, my wife and I hear what sounds like an owl. And I love owls, and so I'm like all excited, and I run to the window. I'm like, man, there's an owl. I hear it, but I can't see it. And I'm sitting there going, that's weird. How many owls hoot in the morning? They're nocturnal. That's super weird. I could see it at night, but... And then my wife is like, I think it's coming from the baby monitor. And then we look at the screen, and my son is sitting there going, hoo, hoo, just hooting like an owl. And then we realized that this bird we kept thinking was outside of our bedroom was actually our son waking up, because he didn't cry like a normal human being. So he would always wake up from a nap and hoot like an owl. So we started calling him Owl and Owl Boy. And so then I named the company after him. In a sense, because I thought it was cute and nice homage to him. Mm-hmm. And then Elin, my daughter, is like, well, WTF? Like, when do I get a company?
I know. I was your firstborn. Come on.
I'm like, honey, I love it. Companies are not easy to start. So for now, we're going to have to stick with Owl. But, maybe we'll name a roof rack after you or something.
Yeah, there you go. Nice. All right. I like that story. That's a good one. All right. JC asks, if you can make the ski box twice as wide, can you do that?
So people that don't know what our ski box is, we come out with this thing. We call it a ski locker, ski box. Snowboarders get mad because they're like, why do you call it a ski locker? It fits snowboards. And I'm like, I get it, but snowboard locker doesn't ring quite as nicely as ski box or ski locker. So it also holds golf clubs. So we have a lot of golfers that use it. It's a product that we bring out for ski season and only for ski season. They're very big and take up a lot of room. We don't want to have a warehouse full of them year round. So it's kind of like a cool special deal. If you're ever interested in one or see them, you're going to have to get on a sign-up list, and we only release them once a year right before ski season, and then they're done. And it happened kind of by happenstance. We had our first run of them years ago, and when they were ready, they were a little late, and when they were ready, it was just summer. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to release a ski locker in summer. So they sat in our warehouse until winter, and then I was like, oh man, I gotta list these because they've been in our warehouse for almost a year. I almost forgot about them. And so I listed them, and they were sold out in a day. And I was like, oh wow, there's demand here for this product. I had no idea it would be so popular. So for almost 2 years, we didn't make them, and we took customers who kept asking us, so we started a list, and then we came out with them this year. And we sold out again this time in like a week, not quite in 24 hours. But we made a lot more of them this time. So that's our ski locker. We are sold out now. We will have more next winter. So if it's something you're interested in, you got to be a little bit quick on the draw. As far as the sizing, everybody wants everything. And I get it. But we also have to, we also have to kind of put guardrails on what people can do. Mm-hmm. So the ski locker is huge. It's like 6 feet tall. It comes in at like 85 pounds empty. And it's that big because you've got so much material, and you have to make the aluminum thick enough to be strong. Right. And at that length, it's going to be heavy. And so you start increasing it. Now you're doubling the width. You're going to get into a box that's going to weigh 150 pounds before you put anything in it. Oh, okay. So we have to be pretty careful. In fact, we work directly with the folks that make our boxes to try to go lighter on the gauge, because like certain panels that are structural are heavier, and then other panels are thinner, which on the surface sounds like it's easy to do, but when you're welding different sized materials together, it can get more complex. So anyway, but we use different gauges of material in our ski box to try to bring the weight down. Mm-hmm. But as far as a double wide one, not only would it weigh a lot, but I would be nervous about that amount of size.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people would be
You can
sticking
fit a lot of stuff in there.
a whole van's worth of stuff. You had 300-400 pounds of stuff in there, and
You're gonna have people like me just shove it full of stuff.
that would make me very nervous.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Steve asks, what new projects are you guys working on, especially the new innovative ideas for attaching rotopacks?
I will not bore people by running through our stuff. Again, we've talked about it ad nauseum about all the new gear that we have. As far as rotopacks, the new ladder mounts, we've had a lot of frustration with them as a company. It's a cool product. It works really well. They don't ship to dealers. They are undersupplied, and when they get a new supply, they sell them at retail, and they don't ship to their dealers. So we have orders going on 6-9 months that don't get fulfilled.
Holy cow.
We don't get any information. And so and folks get really frustrated, and I get it, and it's frustrating for us too, because on a whole Rotopacks jug, I mean, what do we make, $10? It's not like something where by the time we customers support it and fulfill it, I probably lose money selling Rotopacks jugs. So I tell people, go buy them on Amazon, buy them direct. And it sucks because they're essentially getting their cake and eating it too, because we're selling the product and then they're selling it to the customer. But I don't want the customer to wait. So if you have a Rotopacks order, we tell customers every day we're more than happy to cancel it because we have no line of sight to when we'll actually get them. Mm-hmm. Go buy them off Amazon. You'll have it in 2 days. So we may end up making our own roto-molded containers because it's an industry-wide problem. As far as I know, they don't have any patents on it. Of course, we would do our due diligence before releasing something, but there's a whole industry that wants fuel containers, and they are backlogged and don't make enough of them.
Mm-hmm. So basically, you're not working a lot of R&D on that to figure out how to mount them?
Yeah, I mean, we offer mounting solutions because a lot of people have them, and they can still get the mounts and the jugs off of Amazon. So we do still work on it, but as far as trying to increase our relationship with Rotopacks, or our reliance, if you will, we don't really want to, because we don't like selling. We have a number with DeMoss shovels. Person owns it, the woman that runs DeMoss shovels, really, really nice, super ambitious to work with us. We couldn't get supply. It's also an organizational thing. As a business our size, we can't have stuff show up disorganized. So if an example, again, sorry if I'm boring people with the inner details of the van industry, but if you have green shovels and black shovels, and we order 20 black shovels and 20 green shovels and their mounts, and then a pallet shows up, it's got 10 black shovels and 5 green shovels. Okay. Well, now you've got part of the black shovels are fulfilled and even less of the green shovels are fulfilled. And then because you have to get in line to make sure that you keep your supply going, the next PO and the next PO and the next PO go in. And so then you get, let's say your black shovels are all fulfilled, and then the green shovels from the first PO are still open. And then you get a new shipment with a few green and some black. Well, do these green go with the new PO? Do they go with the old PO? How do I pay for them? What's actually open? What do you still have to send me? And it becomes this thing where it eats up a week of someone's time to try to figure out what. And I'm sure this is incredibly boring listening to someone on a podcast, but the logistics of a business, I need suppliers that can ship in and around the dates they say they can, and supply the numbers of the products that they say they can. And I love the DeMoss shovel. It's a cool product. I really liked the woman that ran the company. But at the end of the day, I can't sell a product if I get 3 of them a month.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No, I understand. I think the inner guts of running a business is important for people to know, because it's stuff like this that, sitting on the outside, you're like, oh, what's Owl's issue? Like, I've been waiting, blah, 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 or, whatever the case is. But there goes there's a lot of sausage in there to make that sausage. So
it's hard, and I have a choice as a business owner, and I'll give you an example of Mercedes hinges. So we buy massive quantities of OEM Mercedes hinges, because if you don't have the 180 hinges, you have to swap them. We ran the entire world's supply of hinges dry. There were none. In fact, we started making our own billet machined hinges as a backup. We will get pallets of hinges from Mercedes, and sometimes it's a giant bin, and it's just filled with hinges. And each one of these hinges, our cost is like $100. And so they'll be like, oh, there's, 500 of this hinge and 500 of this hinge. And now we have to go count it, because people are so disorganized that we get shipments. And one time, because I was like, these numbers aren't adding up, we should have more hinges off of the inventory. And I go dump it all out, We're putting them in the parking lot, and the entire parking lot was covered in hinges, rows and rows and rows. We were missing $35,000 of hinges.
Wow. That's crazy.
In one shipment. And then we reach out, and they're like, oh, yeah, our bad. We just found the other pallet back here, or the other boxes. And yeah. And whether it was nefarious or accidental, because mistakes happen, but those are the kind of things where, okay, that cost me half a day. So I have to weigh cost-benefit analysis.
Yeah.
It cost me half a day to count those. But it was a difference of $35,000, which is real money, you know? And so those are the situations where you have to have reliable suppliers, because you can't open everything and you can't count everything. And so I guarantee there are spots where I'm losing money, or I'm paying for parts that I didn't get, but I can't always count everything. Yeah. And those are the problems, the logistics of growing and getting these big shipments and having all the stuff come in.
Yeah. No, that's, like I said, I'm glad I'm not you right now. All right. Let's see. So Dan, not to ignore you, but I think we talked about the locker because he wanted to know the details about it. So I think we're good on that one.
We definitely beat that horse.
Let's see. I hope I'm pronouncing this right. Jing, I want to say. If I'm mispronouncing that, I apologize. Jing wants to know any updates on the CARB approval for the Rentec tune. Okay, I don't know what that is, but...
So CARB is CARB. It's the California Air Resource Board. And so this is actually really cool. I'm glad I get a chance to talk about this. Rentec tune, and I think there are a lot of misconceptions about what a tuner is, why it works, and carbon compliance and so on. So OWL is a very environmentally focused company. And we work hard to make sure that the stuff we do is either sustainable or has a low impact. It's at the core of what we do. We don't necessarily talk about it all the time, but it's a core tenet of what we do because of what we do. We're out in nature without beautiful places to go in these vans. What the heck is the point? So when we started looking at engine tuners, and there's this carb compliance in California. So you're not allowed to modify anything anymore on a vehicle sold in California unless it's carb compliant. Well, the great thing about carb testing is it takes forever, and the same carb that tests Mercedes vehicles OEM for being allowed to be sold in California is the same one we get in line for. So we're small potatoes, but we're in the same line as Mercedes and Ford and all these people that need to get stuff approved in the state. They have become very litigious because they want to stop people from modifying their vehicles. The diesel truck scene came on really big, and a lot of people, I had a Ford F-350. I think it had 1,700 pound-feet of torque, 800 horsepower, and this was all achievable, and this is like long time ago. It's all achievable when these diesel engines came out with these tuners, and people were doing things like DPF deletes and all these things, and California wanted to crack down on that. So they said that everything that modifies an engine in California has to be carb compliant, and it needs a little sticker and all this stuff. So what we did from a company standpoint, we said whatever tune we do, we have to make sure that it adds benefit without adding without negatively affecting the environmental impact of the vehicle. The last thing we want to do as a company is use these lands and then sell a product that puts out bad tailpipe emissions. So what we did first and foremost is we tested the tune with Rentec to make sure that it is not putting out any greater tailpipe pollutants than your stock van. You may end up with a regen more frequently, and for people who don't know what a regen is, your catalytic converter or your DPF, catalytic converters on a gas engine car. Your DPF, your diesel particulate filter, it gets clogged. And so a regen is where they pump incredibly hot exhaust gases through to burn all of the clog essentially out of the DPF. So you may end up with a few more frequent regens, but we haven't even really seen that. I've run Rentec tunes and prototypes all the time and never regen. I mean, I do, but not more than normal. The reason I say all that is because California has become very litigious about going after these companies and massive hundreds of thousands of dollar fines for companies that sell tuners and so on.
Jeez.
Obviously, I don't want to open myself up to that liability. So first and foremost, let's make sure that we don't violate anything in California because the whole goal of the law is to be environmentally conscious. So the Rentec tune we've tested, which they don't even do when they smog your diesel. They don't test your tailpipe emissions. They check your computer and they check that everything's there. They do not test your tailpipe emissions. We do. It passes that. We made sure that it passes all the carb legal things. Then we got in line to be carb approved. We are still in line to do that testing.
Oh, okay.
So we have not been approved per se with carb, which is why we have on our website that the sale of this unit in California is for off-road use. So legally you can't use a Rentec tuner on the road. Could someone ever pull you over and find out it's there? Unless they're a computer software engineer, no.
Yeah.
But we want to be really clear and transparent with our customers. Do people use it in California? It's certainly possible, but we want to make sure from a company standpoint that we sell it as an off-road use in California. But on the flip side of it, we are absolutely, to the best of our knowledge, carb compliant or in the process of getting carb approval. So that's where we are. I will touch base with Rentec again to figure out where we are on that, but it's a giant government bureaucracy, and so it's a black hole.
What's a realistic goal for that approval?
If we get it within the next 12 months, I'll be excited.
Oh, really? So we're talking at least a year.
Hopefully it will be inside of this calendar year.
Okay.
So.
Wow, interesting. See, this is all crazy stuff that I had no idea. This is all information that people should know. That was a good question.
Well, and in fact, I can expand upon this too, because a lot of people have a misconception about how tuners work. And I think it's really important. Again, people with the same information, I think, make good decisions. People assume, and this was true years ago, but as you get more and more regulations, and people think about regulations here. You don't think about the world. Mercedes does not want, a Sprinter is not a high performance vehicle. Nobody at the Mercedes engine engineering lab said, hey, let's eke out every last horsepower from this engine. They do that with like a high performance Mustang or a GTS or something like that. They're not doing it with a Sprinter. They go, we want reliability. We want dependability. So they make these motors to run so inside of their safety zone that it's comical. They don't optimize them at all because they don't care. This is a delivery vehicle. They don't really care what the performance is like. Then the most important thing for Mercedes is compliance. And it's not compliance in the US. It's compliance all around the world. There are all kinds of funky laws. There's a horsepower maximum in like Japan in general. So for years and years, every vehicle that had 700 horsepower in Japan, it had air quotes 300 horsepower. So there's all kinds of there's sound regulations, there's weight regulations. For example, in Australia, if you have all kinds of regulations for side airbags unless you're over a certain weight. And once you're over a certain weight, you don't have those same airbag regulations. Well, it's the same with Mercedes. So when they engineer their vehicle and their engine, there are max sound levels. Maybe in Kazakhstan, they say that any commercial vehicle can't be over 78 decibels. And then you go to Greenland, and Greenland is like, no commercial vehicle can have over 150 horsepower. And then you go to the US, and they go, no commercial vehicle can put out X amount of sound at full throttle. And you have all these competing bureaucracies around the world. And so the unfortunate task for Mercedes is they need to have a one shoe fits all. And so what they do is they make it super quiet, and they detune it, and they make the boost low, and they do all these things so that they comply with every rule around the world. And so people think when we do these Rentec tuners, they're like, oh, you're stressing the motor, you're just getting more horsepower of a motor that wasn't ever intended to do that, and it's going to blow up. It's like, no, if in Kenya a vehicle can't be over 78 decibels when idling, do you care if it's 80 decibels? If you get 80 more horsepower? No, you don't care. And so that's the low-hanging fruit with an engine tune is doing things that would get you out of compliance with random bureaucracies around the world that you don't care about. So we worry about the bureaucracies in and around California and the US. And that's what we adhere to as far as compliance, because we're not Mercedes, we're a domestic company.
Gotcha. Okay, so Tracy asks, going off the ski locker, have you thought about putting shelves in that bad boy?
Yeah, the ski locker, we didn't do much on the inside, and that's mainly because we didn't know how people were going to use it. So some people are going to use it for skis, some people are going to use it for snowboards, some people are going to use it for golf clubs. So we do include one adjustable shelf, which if you're going to use skis, you're probably not going to use. If you're going to use it for golf clubs, you're probably going to use the adjustable shelf, or if you have shorter skis, you can use it. So there were so many different uses for that product that we kind of just decided, you know what, it's going to take so long and add so much cost for us to create something for everyone that we're just going to let people go wild with their DIYs. And I've seen some very, very cool setups. So I love seeing the creativity of folks out there.
Awesome. Steve asked, and we already went over this, but I just want him to know that we're not ignoring his question. But he asked when the LT parts will be available. Unless you want to expand, I'll just go on to the next question.
Yeah, no, I mean, as soon as we can get them out, once we get material, we're really material constrained. So if you know any massive aluminum smelters out of South Africa and you want to get a special boat headed our way, I am game.
Nice. Okay. Carlos asks, will you please share the details on the Owl Sprinter motorcycle hitch carrier and what went into the design? And also, will a video be coming out soon?
So this is something where I wish I could answer the question, but that's actually not my work. That is Mike Reed, who is out of Colorado. He runs the Revel Rally, and he is an avid motorcyclist, dirt bike rider. And the cool thing is he wanted to develop a motorcycle hitch attachment that was much more robust, because anyone that's put a lot of cheap bike racks into a Sprinter hitch knows how much it moves around and how much it kills your departure angle. And it hangs off the back, so you can't really go in and out of driveways or, God forbid, trying to go off-roading with that. So he wanted to create a motorcycle hitch that allowed you to have really good departure angle, so it's up high, kind of like a one-up hitch mount is. And it had to be able to carry something like 600 pounds. And so what he did was he made it bolt into not just the hitch carrier in the center, but also in the side where the actual hitch bolts into the Mercedes chassis. So instead of a single point, it's got 3 points, so it's much more stable. I've personally only ever played with his units. I don't have one on my vehicle. But as far as a rock solid dirt bike motorcycle hauler, I think it's a really good solution. I don't think there are a ton of Sprinter people that want to haul it on the back, but it's enough now that I think it makes sense to have a solution that's much better than what's out there. So I've talked to Mike. He's going to do a video. It's in the works because I know you've got something on there that's $2,000. And it's one of the reasons we do a lot of videos, because it's hard to justify spending that kind of money and not really knowing how it works until it shows up on your door. Mm-hmm. So it's the product that I played with in person was really, really cool and nicely done, and 1,000 times more robust than a standard motorcycle hitch carrier that you'd find for a couple $100 at Harbor Freight. But you may want to wait until Mike has that video to talk about the details.
Okay. Do you know when he plans on doing that?
I literally just emailed him this morning, and he said he's working on it. So
okay.
How's that for an obscure answer?
All right. There we go. Let's see. So Sam sure asks, do you have East Coast expansion plans over the next couple of years? That's
a good question. The van industry has been pretty much a Colorado River West type of thing, which is interesting because the big manufacturers, you have Storyteller in the South, Winnebago in the Midwest. Their Backwoods is in the South as well. So there aren't many folks out there. Freedom Van Go is probably one of the best solutions out on the East Coast. They're in Florida. They do really nice work. I love the team out there. As far as us expanding, we want to be cognizant of where we have people that have invested in our brand. So like we would never, ever go to Florida and open up an Owl off-road right next to Freedom Van Go or in that general vicinity, because they've been a great partner of ours. But I think that eastward expansion is a no-brainer. I don't know if van and adventure vanning will ever be as big on the East Coast as it is on the West Coast. Mm-hmm. But it's certainly going to be bigger than it is now. Yeah. And I think that the way I view the East Coast is they're, not in general, just with the van industry, 2 or 3 years behind the West Coast as far as demand. Mm-hmm. We're starting to see it now. We used to sell 1 in 100 things to the East Coast. Now it's, 10 of 100. So it's a tenfold increase, but it's still probably 10% of our business. So I would say that we've probably got Pacific Northwest, Midwest, and we're going to kind of be like reverse settlers moving slowly east across the country. But we do obviously plan to open more Owl off-road locations as we go.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I hope you get over there. Those guys I think they feel like they're bastard childs out there. Children.
Freedom Van Gogh or just
No,
East
no,
Coasters
just
in
the
general?
East Coast storyteller in the community. They just kind
Well,
of feel
you've got a
bastardized.
traveling van. You can be right where the action is at any time.
Yeah, right? Okay, let's see. So, not to put salt on the wound, but Clark asks, which owl accessories can be mounted to the Invader system?
So the Invader system, let me see how I want to say this. The Invader system is something that I'm actually not terribly familiar with from an accessory standpoint. My experience thus far with mounting stuff to it is, and it's not punitive, but it has to make dollars and cents. So we had a customer come in the other day with an Invader and wanted one of our ski lockers. We had to pull the Invader off to mount the ski locker. So on a Sherpa, there's space behind so you can reach in. The Invader is sealed off. I believe because they intended to have accessories mount to the face of it. How, I'm unfamiliar, but it is something where we don't currently have a solution. So I'm not sure what accessories would mount to it. You can certainly mount our gear to it, but I think it's going to be much more involved than mounting our gear to our gear. You're probably going to have to take the Invader off. So, yeah.
Is that something you're going to want to try to do in the future? Have some type of compatibility between the two systems?
I don't know. I mean, that's a situation. I'm being overly honest here. It's like, do I want to help support what is a semi-competitive product to ours? You know, and I don't know. I don't know where the right scenario lies there, because I love Storyteller. I love the management at Storyteller. You know, that we can agree to disagree on that aspect of what they do, but I'm always going to be Team Owl. I'm always going to think we make the best gear. And, you know, I'll leave it to the customers in the marketplace to make the decision.
Okay.
I do know it was kind of a bummer for a lot of folks that were waiting on stealths, were waiting on the Invaders that were stuck on a ship. And so I think that was a bummer. But, I mean, if I could have it, I'm like, come to Owl, we'll get you sorted off and you'll have your van tomorrow.
I know, right? Just take the Invader off the price and go to Owl. Okay. Last listener question. Chris asks, do you know, okay, so we kind of touched on this with the motorcycle carrier. Sorry, I thought I had organized these questions better, but apparently I did not. Chris asks, for the new Owl motorcycle carrier, does it clear the Expedition box and the B2 carrier with bikes?
There is an extension that is included because Mike, who developed the hitch, has our gear on the back. And so he includes an extension for anyone that has our gear. It is included in the price. So when you get it, you can mount it directly to the hitch if you don't have anything on your rear doors. And if you do, the extension is included.
Okay, cool. So I have 3 questions, and they're all mine. So and I know I talked to you, so I don't want to go back in history, but from the last time I talked to you, about a year ago, what's the hardest thing about running Owl vans?
People. I love the team we have. Getting to the team we have has been painful. We have hired and fired a lot of people because we don't tolerate mediocrity. I know that's easy to say, but we really don't. If you are working at Owl, you're going to care about what we do. You're going to care about the customer, and you're going to work hard. And if you don't have those things and care about this industry and care about the team here, if you're just a hired gun mercenary that's like, I'm going to show up, I'm going to punch my card, I'm going to do what boss tells me, I'm going to leave, that's not who we need working for us. And in a short labor, in a lean labor environment, we're not willing to compromise quality people because there aren't many available. And so we have perpetual open job listings right now to get quality people. And I would say also just the management of those people is tough. And it's not something that I would say that is an area that I excel at. I think when you start a business, there are things that you love to do. I love innovating. I love adventure vanning. I love building things. That's what I love. Building a huge company where you have HR and middle management and all these things that it takes to get from where we are to the next level. I wouldn't say it's my core competency, and I also wouldn't say I love it. We'll do it, but I want to somehow try to maintain the spirit and the culture that we have here that makes everyone enjoy coming to work. And the fact that I can walk out in the Owl parking lot right now and see every single person that works here's car is plastered in Owl stickers. When I see their Instagram stories and Facebook posts on the weekend, they're wearing Owl hats and Owl shirts. And when it's Christmas time, the number of employees that came to me and asked to buy, which I of course gave them, but asked to buy Owl fleeces and hats and shirts to give to their dad and their, aunts and sisters and all these things, that means the world to me. And it means that they care and love where they work. That's what I love. And so as far as answering what's hardest, growing to the point where you have people that treat it like a job, not like a passion, is hard for me.
Mm-hmm. No, I totally get it, because it's not their baby.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And how do you transition? How do you make that culture when you've got, like, John Denver? We call him John Denver because his name is John and he works at the Denver facility. So we call him, and it's so funny because customers started calling him John Denver too, which is the greatest. But John Denver's amazing. He knows his stuff inside and out. He's really, really good at what he does. I'm not worried about him. The people he hires. How do we transmit the culture of who we are and what we do to those folks? How do we disseminate that as we grow to these different locations? And it's hard. And I think that it's something that I've heard a lot of CEOs that have had growing businesses say, that there is a transition point where it's not your baby anymore. And that isn't, it's monetarily, it's great. From a personal fulfillment standpoint, it's hard.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then my second to last question is, how have you personally grown in the last year?
Oh, wow. That's a deep one. How have I grown?
We just don't talk about all gear and storytellers on this podcast.
Yeah. Wow. How much time have you got? I've already used up multiple hours. I think that the work-life balance aspect is tough. And that's something that I have to consciously work on. I have to consciously work on not bringing stuff home. I talked earlier, and I'm being genuine, that when customers have a bad experience with us, we take it home at night, and I take it home at night, and it sucks, and it keeps me up at night, and I don't sleep, and that sucks. And so, though, trying to understand that when I sold 10 tire carriers and someone had a problem, I took that home at night. When you sell the volume of stuff that we sell now, there's going to be a problem every day. It doesn't mean they're monumental. FedEx lost a shipment, this or that. You can't take it home. And it's like, if you work, and I'm not saying that we're anything like lost baggage for like Spirit Airlines, but if you work the lost baggage counter, you're going to have people yelling at you all day, and I'm sure you become numb to it. And we have very few, I don't want to over-index on the bad experiences, but what I mean is I'm trying to learn how to not let the things that I can't control affect me as much. A product gets lost in shipment, and then for that customer, we overnight at great expense to the point where we're losing money on another carrier, and it gets damaged in shipment. And now the customer's super pissed and they missed their trip. And I genuinely feel bad about that. But getting to a point where I can say, you know what? You guys did everything you could to make this as right as it could, and we got unlucky in the situation. And don't let it keep you from sleeping tonight. Mm-hmm. And because it's not fair to my family, and it's not fair to my friends. And so that's an aspect where I'm learning to trust the team more and more. I'm letting go of the little stuff, and I'm also trying to enjoy the journey. There is this natural human tendency to constantly compare yourself to others or to where you want to be. The common psychological thing on it is they say to someone, would you rather make $100,000 if everyone else around you makes $150,000? Or would you rather make $75,000 when everyone around you makes $50,000? And you're making less money. Mm-hmm. But it turns out people are happiest and they choose to make more money than everyone else because it's a comparative thing. And that's a really dangerous thing to fall into as a human. And it's really dangerous to fall into as a business owner. If someone waved a magic wand 3 years ago and said, this little thing you're working on in your garage is going to be Owl the company and you're going to have 40 plus employees and locations around the country, first of all, I would have said they're insane. Second of all, I would have said, oh my God, where do I sign up for hitting the lottery? Yet when you get here, and I'm incredibly proud and happy of where we are, I'm still stressed because it's like we've got this year we want to bring out transit and we want to bring out all these new products and this is delayed and we got to get this problem worked out and we got to hire these people. And it's like the stress level doesn't go on. The best analogy I've ever heard was Lance Armstrong. When someone asked him, some reporter said, Lance, it must be easy at this point. He goes, what do you mean? They go, well, you're in such amazing shape. It must be so easy. And he goes, it's never easy. It is incredibly painful all the time. You just get faster. And I think that's what it is with a growing business. It's never not stressful. It's never easy. There's always something that needs to be attended to. You're just bigger. And instead of trying to hit that, hey, let's try to sell $5,000 or $10,000 of product this month. Now the numbers are just different, but it's the same stress. And so I'm trying to learn to be cognizant of the journey, appreciate the journey, take a step back and say, isn't this amazing that we've built this team of people that love this? Isn't this amazing that there's customers out there that I don't know that go out of their way to say positive things about us? We did an origin story video about the beginnings of Owl Vans, and which is so rare in today's society. It was nothing but positive comments. And it wasn't people that were jealous of the growth of Owl or were from a competitor and slammed us. It was all positive comments. And I'm like, I'm going to take that and just let that soak in, because one negative comment can ruin your day. Everyone knows that from social media. But when you get 10, 20, 30 people who don't know you, who are congratulating you and your team and saying, I'm so proud of that, you got to soak in that for a while too and take that in. And that, it's not as easy, but that's, in the world's longest answer, what I'm working on for me.
That's good. I mean, you definitely have to stop and smell the roses and look back and, I don't want to say like in a narcissistic way, like admire where you came from, but I forget that rapper's name, but basically you started from the bottom and now you're here kind of thing. That might be a bad way to put it, but basically, I mean, yeah, it's, I understand your struggle. It's definitely a balance, especially when you have family. And
yeah, and I hope that none of that comes off as whiny, complainy stuff. It's just that I think it's something that hopefully everyone can relate to, and I don't think we ever get right as people. We are so attuned to focus on the negative that, again, like I said, you can have 100 positive things said to you, done to you, whatever, and it's that one thing that didn't go as planned or one negative thing that someone said that just sticks with you. And I think we have to consciously work to fight that.
Yeah. Where there's a quote, well, I won't go into that, but basically, not only that, but what I see, not just from you, but from most of the vendors I talk to, is that all the issues that the customers have in regards to like having to wait and their lack of, being patient, or, maybe they just don't understand what's going on, like that, all that burden times, I don't know how many customers you have. I'm just going to say thousands to keep the numbers simple. It's a funnel. It all comes up here and then it spirals down to you. Yeah, that's a lot.
Well, and now, thankfully, there's a little bit of a wall between me and some of the day-to-day problems. I have enough really talented people here that problems get solved oftentimes before they hit my desk, which is amazing. But there are days where I see it in their faces. You come out there and it looks like everyone's puppy died. And it's just like, what's going on? And they're just like, we had a day, man. And it'd be like, anything you want to tell me about? And they're like, you don't want to hear it. It's all fixed, but you don't want to hear it. And I'm like, thank you. Yeah. I appreciate you like shouldering that burden. I'm going to go play with my kids, at the end of the day.
That's good.
Because the team works hard, and at the end of the day, you can't do anything more than that.
Yeah.
And you can't control lead times. And, I really, the team here really tries to level set, and we do this almost like, regardless of how you feel about religion, I think one of the best aspects of religion is that on a weekly basis, you go in and you gather and someone says, hey, this week, let's work on this. Let's work on being kinder to our neighbor. Let's work on being a good person. Let's work on doing something for others, whatever, all these things. I think that's people tend to think that we as people make a decision and we're that way forever. I think that we require maintenance, just like an owl carrier on your back door. That you have to do tune-ups, and I do tune-ups with myself and with employees here, where I just hear them getting battered, like a customer service, because let's say FedEx has a problem, and I don't mean to keep throwing FedEx under the bus, but there's just a really common problem with shipping delays these days. And our customer service staff just getting one bad call after another, and I'll take them in. I'll be like, look, understand, they're upset because of how excited they are for the stuff that we make. They're upset because this is one of 10 things on their van that they've been, like 10 other things that are also delayed from other manufacturers, and they're going to miss their trip, and they're not going to go be with their family. I was like, they're not really mad at you. It's not your fault. But just keep in mind that sometimes people just need to vent.
Yeah.
And it sucks sometimes that it comes out in this way. And I hope I'm not painting customers as like these horrible people, because the customers here are so amazing on the grand scale. But it's like a maintenance thing with the folks that keep in mind that these are good people. They want our stuff. Like, just don't internalize it.
Yeah. No, I totally get it. Thanks for sharing that. I'm sure that's not easy.
It's a lot, but it's also wonderful. And I would say that the most fun time are when we get out and get on the trail with the customers. We do these, and I hope to start them up again soon. Don't take this as a sales pitch. We lose money on every single one, but we do these trail runs and these events where we go out. I know you guys do them as well. And it's just such a cool chance to get out there and hang with people. And it's a refreshing break where I get to get back in love with adventure vans, which I do, and away from the day-to-day grind of running a business. And so I really, really look forward to those trail runs or van shows. I absolutely love. It's, for people that don't know, if you come to the show and you talk to our staff, the people that are nice enough to be excited and so on, it really does energize the staff. They bring that home in the same way that you can bring negative stuff home. They bring that back, and to watch people's pep in their step. Wow, I sound like I'm 90. When they get back to the office after a van show and they're like, wow, some guy came up to me and he got one of our B2s and he said he absolutely loves it, and he goes mountain biking and then he swaps it out for skiing and all this stuff. And he was just like, he thanked me for the stuff we make. And it's just, you can see how happy they are. And that's so cool. So that stuff, for anyone that's gone out of their way to stop by at a show and say something like that, it definitely, it matters.
Yeah, it resonates. That's good. All right, John, last
Cool.
question.
All right,
it's been
last
a long
one.
one, I know. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I asked this on the last episode, but
Okay.
I'll ask it again, because I think some things have changed. But what does it mean for you to be part of the Stow Nation community?
You're right. Things have changed. And I think that now, it's one of those cool things, like knowing a rock band before they were the rock band. And I think that everyone that's in the van industry today has no idea how big this is going to be and how anonymous it's going to be. There is a point in time in a company, a point in time in an industry, a point in time in a band where if you ask Green Day, like, what was the best time of your life, they probably won't say, maybe they will, but I've never been a rock star. They'll probably have moments where it's like, that stadium they played to 200,000 people, but the grind of those shows is not the best part of their life. The best part of their life will probably be when it was, 4 guys in a Winnebago RV driving from show to show, eating Hot Pockets, and when they were the undiscovered band and they had loyal fans. And so that's how I feel like the van industry is. Anyone that's here listening to this podcast that has a van today, even though it already feels like somebody may be new to the party, you're not. This is going to be a monster. The number of businesses getting acquired in the past 6 months is insane. There's some acquisitions that just happened this past week that, I don't know when those will be public, but it's not us. It's crazy, and it's going to look different. And you look at the Jeep industry, and you look at the Smitty builds and the 4-wheel parts, and they're huge and they're anonymous. And when you call 4-wheel parts, that person has probably never owned an off-road vehicle in their life. They're in a call center somewhere, taking calls all day. And when they're not doing that, they're probably trying to sell you a extended car warranty. So this is what I like about being part of the Stone Nation is that this is a time when I think I will look back on this time in this industry very fondly. The relationships we've made, the people we've hung out with, because I don't think it's going to be this way forever.
Yeah, I agree. This is like the golden years, for sure.
This is when you arrive in California in 1848 and you're walking around and be like, hey, there's gold in these hills. This is going to be fun. And then all of a sudden, like 8 months later, it's like an entire city built up. You're like, this isn't much fun anymore.
Yeah, no, I totally understand. But yeah, it's nice to be in the golden age for sure.
Yep.
So I know it's going to change. I don't want it. I don't think anybody does. But, I've throughout the meetups and stuff, it's a subject that has come across our, minds and conversations. And the question is just when. But I think for the most part, as of right now, I think we'll be good for a while. So
well, and I think if I can leave anyone with anything, it's be nice to the new people. When you have an industry like this that grows, I see it with Jeeps, I see it with Land Cruisers, I see it with all kinds of different industries with the forums, and you start to see it on some of the stuff. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all, because it spirals downhill so fast. If someone's new and they're asking basic questions that don't crap on them. Don't call them, a noob and all this stuff. And that's not the case yet in a lot of these online forums and groups, but it is the case with a lot of like Jeep and Land Cruisers. Someone will come in and be like, ask a question. And to everyone that's been in the industry, it's an asinine question. And you're just like, seriously, dude? Like Google or this or that. Mm-hmm. Just say it in a nice way. Don't be a jerk and just be like, hey, there's a search feature a lot of people have done. And that's what people do today. Mm-hmm. But it will always trend towards a snarky, I've been here for 5 years. You're new. It's like a condescension. Mm-hmm. And so the only thing I would ask people is don't let us become those forums and those Facebook pages that are condescending to the new people. Pretend or think back to when you were new to this industry and didn't know anything.
Exactly.
Yeah, now you could put a Van Compass 4.3 on in your sleep and the exact tire size that a two-wheel drive can fit and a four-wheel drive can fit and all this stuff, but you didn't know that. You didn't always know that.
Yeah, everyone starts somewhere.
Exactly.
Yeah. John, that's a great way to end the podcast. Again, this has been a long one. I think you also have the record for the longest podcast, so congratulations.
I don't know if that's a good thing. Isn't brevity like one of the tenets of good communication?
Well, also, the details are in the devil, or the devil is in the details. So
I'm gonna go with that one.
Yeah, I mean, you went into some behind the scenes stuff, and I think that's what most listeners really appreciate because they know. They go on your website, they'll get the specs, they know what you're offering, yada, yada, yada. But it's like who you are as a person, who you are as a businessman, a family man, things of that nature. So I think a lot of people appreciate that. So
awesome.
Well, I know I do.
Well, thank you. And I appreciate the time to talk to people about something I love. And hopefully I see you folks out on the trail this year.
Stone Nation is a production of Park Media. The executive producer is Younghwa Kim. The audio engineer is
Stephen Grasso.
The marketing director is
Guillaume Golsong.
The original music and artist is done by
Jason Walsmith.
The sound designer is
Lorenzo Interiano.
And the webmaster is
Peng Shi.
Without any of these people, this podcast couldn't happen, so a big, huge thank you. And a big, huge thank you to you, the listener. If you like this episode, please don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a 5-star review. This is Younghwa with Stone Nation, and I can't wait to share the road with you.